the problem that's causing the bitterness, the fear, the intimidation, the anger inside of this country. And this problem, as you guys already know, goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. But in saying that, I just want to share something with you just recently. You know, one of the things that I'm a glutton for is knowledge and information. You know, if you know me, you know I'm an avid reader, historian, and I've been doing this since I was in my teens. Well, really, elementary school. History was something that always interested me because I knew if I understood history, then I would understand who I was, who we were as, you know, so-called Americans, and equally important, you know, what makes the world go round as it relates to people and the things people think. So with that said, I recently purchased this book, and this book is called A History of the United States. Now this book was actually used to teach, as you can see down here, prepared especially for schools on the new and comprehensive plan embracing the features of the layman's historical chart. And that chart is just a map of the early United States. But inside of this book, and I just started reading the book, and there's some things that came up that I just had to share. And so first it says, this is the part one of the book. See if I can get this where you can see it. Okay, it'll be little, as you see over there. If you read, if you can see that, pretty much what it says is that, let's go closer. All right. Can I get that? Can you see it? The primitive inhabitants of the New World were red men, right? And what called Indians. The name was given to them from, what is that? The name was given to them from their supposed identity with the people of India. Columbus and his followers believed that they had reached the island of the Far East and that the natives were of the same race as the inhabitants of the Indies. Okay? Key word there is Columbus thought he was in India, and therefore that's why he gave the name Indians. Well, you know me. Figure, you know what? Let's take and see what the red man who Columbus called Indians look like. Now, can you see that? Now, unless I'm colorblind, these people don't look red-skinned to me. Matter of fact, these people look like what you would call copper-colored people. Where's the red man? Okay. First lie. What was taught, 1876. And by the way, for the record, this book is a registered book. If I can get to it, just so you can see it. See right there? I'm sorry, over here. I'm covering it up. Over here. See what that says? August 9th, right here. August 9th, 1904. What's right at the top of that? The Library of Congress. See it up there? The Library of Congress. And this book has been in print since, go down here if you can see it right at the bottom. Crap. Let's see. The right page. Let me put my finger by it. That way you can see what I'm trying to show you. And then we'll get into the rest of this book. Where is it? Okay, there you go. See right there? All right, let's go a little bit closer for you. 1885. Okay? Now, let me read some other things from you in this book. This is what they were teaching, guys. Okay? First of all, it's clear that these red men were not red. That's why you saw at the top of the book, it's, you know, what a big lie. As you can see what I wrote up there. They were dark, there had to be a dark-skinned nation. But look down where it's highlighted at. Not the first paragraph, but see the second paragraph? The notion that the red men are descendants of what? Israelites? is absurd. Israelites. Now, Israelites would be the people of the Bible. That would be the original people of the Bible. Why would anyone take the notion back in the late 1800s and associate so-called red men, as we can see, copper-colored people, okay, as the people of Yahweh, the people of the Bible? I'm talking about Moses. I'm talking about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, King David, King Solomon. How interesting that they would make that association, right, with the red man and say it's absurd that these people are the people of the Most High. I think I know why they would say that, because even then they knew that these were the people of the Most High. If you go back into the scripture, what you're going to find is that a crop that's constantly talked about in the Bible, constantly talked about, Old Testament, New Testament, grain. And this particular grain they were talking about, this all through the Bible, can only be grown in the Western Hemisphere. In other words, Central America, you know what I'm saying, and North America. Guess what that crop was? Corn. Couldn't grow corn anywhere else at that time. But here in North America, Turtle Island, about the continent of North America, was the only place you could grow corn. And all through the scripture it talks about the people of Yahweh growing corn. Another strange coincidence. But then the book gets much worse. Let me read this to you. It's another paragraph. Just going to read what I have highlighted. It says here, such a race could only live in the country of woods, and wild animals. Then it goes also say the white man came, and the native nations were already declining in numbers and influence. That's interesting. When they came, they had almost 300 million Native Americans here, and somehow they claimed that they were few in number, already declining. Well, what was causing them to decline? What was causing them? I think that's a fair question. What was causing them to decline? Because they weren't declining before you got there. Of course, excuse me, you said they were declining when the Europeans came here. Again, this book. Then it goes on to say that the former were highly civilized for a primitive people. And the principal tribes of this is the Mobilians from, I guess this is Mobile, Alabama. It goes on to talk about they were a feeble race. And then over here, this is another one. And I won't keep this up, but I want to share this with you. It's right over here. This is what it says. I'm going to read my point right here. Let you read it first. See, it says, the Indian women were a degraded creature, a mere drudge and beast of burden. Wow. The Indian woman was a degraded creature, a mere drudge and beast of burden. Wow. And then it goes on to talk about, right below there, it says Indian writing was consisted of half-intelligent hieroglyphics scratched on the face of rocks. And then the red man's vocabulary, which we know this is the red. Now, my skin could be considered ruddy, reddish brown, but the Indian that we're looking at this today on these reservations, the owners of these casinos, etc., those are $5 Indians. Those are Caucasians mixed with blacks who have taken over the identification of the Native American people and passing themselves off as the original people at the expense of the original people. You may ask, well, why do you continue to bring these things up? Well, we talked about this yesterday. Until we see an America that's not treating our women like brutal beast of burden. You know what they say about black women. You guys have heard it. So I'm not the first person to say that. Treating our men like they're primitive men, savages, don't have social skills, warlike mentality. Still saying the same thing about us now. Oh yes, and hunting us down in in shopping malls, in our cars, in our communities, and again, shooting us in the back, running away. legally, illegally, asking for a driver's license. Yes, I have a gun, officer. I have a license to carry a gun. Then, when I reach to show you the license, you unload on me. I run because I have a pocket knife, Freddie Gray, Baltimore, because I'm afraid I'm on my bicycle. You capture me from the time you take me from where you apprehended me to the jailhouse, my neck is broken. Sandra Bland hangs herself for some reason in jail down in Texas. I mean, you know the stories, guys. I can go on and on and on and on and on. So, what my point is, you've heard me say this before. I can't believe what you say because I see what you do, and now I understand what you do because this is what your grandparents were taught out of. Probably your great-grandparents and grandparents, because I don't know when they stopped teaching out of this particular history book, but I'm sure they just changed some of the wording of it. But this is, again, proof evident that copper-colored people were here thousands and thousands of years before the Europeans came. Even the name Indian was associated with India because there are copper-colored people over there. But obviously they're not American, they're not Turtle Islands, because again, they're halfway around the world. But we were here. The crops that they survived on, corn, can only be grown here. It's grown all over the world now, but that crop has to be tended to by man. That crop won't grow on its own. It has to be cultivated. And the land that it was cultivated more, even now, 30% of all your corn is produced in the United States. And if you go back in history, you'll find out that that number was a lot higher. And that's a lot of the wars between the Europeans and the Native Americans that they were fighting back in the 1600s, where you get your Thanksgiving holiday from, that massacre. The main thing they were fighting over were cornfields. Because corn was that's how you got your grain, you got your wheat, you got a lot of your food supply. And they were fighting for those cornfields. And that's, with these massacres, that was the root cause of these massacres. Okay? It was about self-preservation. One had weapons, of war technology, advanced weapons. The other had, what we would consider, rule weapons, stone-made weapons, bow, arrows, those kind of things. So you put those things up against cannon fodder, explosive, later on, Gatling guns, it's not going to be much of a contest. And we will go from 100% of the population now to about 13% of the population on Turtle Island in less than 400 years. 300 million to about 30 million. Somebody's going to be held accountable for that. Maybe not here in this life, but I can assure you in the afterlife. And again, this stuff's not accused every Caucasian, and I'm not that ignorant, and if you know me, you know my history. This is not about, my dislike for anyone. It's my dislike for bigotry and for you who keep your mouths shut about it. And I'm not going to be quiet about it because that's how ignorance gets to perpetuate itself. That's how ignorance gets to grow. That's how bigotry survives, because good people who give a damn, don't say anything about it because, they don't want to deal with the reality of the truth. But it's only the truth that's going to free us all as Americans, whether you're Aboriginal Americans or European Americans. It's only that truth. It's only talking about it, bringing it out in the open, fighting against it, doing whatever it is necessary to eliminate it. And again, if you call yourself non-bigot, you call yourself a non-racist, then, please let us hear you. Get out here where we know where you are and take a stand alongside us to put a stop to it. And not only help us in putting a stop to it, help us in rectifying all the wrong that has been done to the copper-colored Native American people on this continent over the last 400 years. And that includes making sure restorations are provided, just like you would have done for the Japanese. You heard me talk about that before. Like we do every year for Israel, sending them $1 billion a year